February 2013. Local law enforcement is closing in on a suspected murderer in the mountains of San Bernardino County.
That week when we were doing the manhunt in there in Big Bear, I can't tell you how many scenarios I just played over in my head.
You always know that it's a possibility, but you never think that it's going to be your reality.
And that was probably the hardest weekend of my career. I mean, we were working 12-hour shifts, running the risk of being shot at any moment, and all the deputies that worked up there searching cabin to cabin. That was the thing. It could have been anybody at any moment.
Then, on February 12, 2013, this chapter in San Bernardino County law enforcement history was about to take a deadly turn.
Then we hear over the radio that the suspect just fired at 2 Fish and Game officers. We're getting the helicopters en route. Our SWAT team's coming back to Big Bear. Everyone's just kind of going to this area.
You could see all the vehicles coming, the SWAT guys and guys coming from just all over the place.
So we're just trying to get to him as soon as possible before someone else gets hurt or killed. There's 2 cabins down Glass Road, so I figured we'd clear the cabins, make sure no one was inside or his car wasn't around, and then we'd continue down Glass Road and find this guy. I was walking with my rifle on my shoulder, kind of looking down at the tire tracks. As I got closer, I just heard a pop and a flash, and I knew I got shot, and I felt it in my face. I also felt a round hit me in the leg. I knew I was hit, and I was able to take a couple steps behind the Dodge Durango while the suspect continued to fire more rounds at me.
I had just talked to him maybe 20 minutes before, so I hang up and people are calling me out. I heard, that some deputies were hurt, some were shot. Like, is Alex okay? Yeah, he's fine. I just talked to him 20 minutes ago.
2 deputies had been hit. One, Jeremiah McKay, was mortally wounded.
And then a few minutes later, we heard over the radio an officer down, and I think all our hearts sank.
I started to choke. I couldn't breathe. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm done. I was gonna call my wife and tell her that I love her, and I probably aren't not gonna make it home tonight. First thing that went through my head, my wife. We just had our first child, who's 3 weeks old. I just couldn't stop playing that in my head of, I felt guilty that, I was gonna leave my wife with this brand new baby, and I felt horrible. And that was another thing that just to keep telling myself, okay, no matter what, like, I'm not gonna give up, I'm not gonna stop. Mentally, like, the will to survive kicked in. What they teach us in the academy was like, okay, I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna let this guy take this away from me. I'm gonna make it home and get back to my family.
When we got on scene, they pointed over to where the deputies were down, and then we had to deal with that.
Initially, we laid down what's called cover fire, hopefully to keep the suspect in a retreat. I was able to grab Alex and pull him back to cover.
And at that point, we landed, and that's pretty much where we went into medical mode. I was so busy with Alex that I just yelled at Randy, our pilot, let him know we're coming.
Our initial worry was that his airway would be compromised, that the bleeding from his face, which was significant, would go down his airway and cause him to not be able to breathe. Within roughly an hour after he arrived, he had 3 teams working on 3 major areas of injury that he had.
And there were the guys working on his mouth and jaw and face, and I had his arm, and then Dr. Sharp, the traumatologist, my partner that had grabbed me, she was working on his leg, and it was standing room only, but yeah, everybody was working at the same time.
The magnitude was pretty severe, specifically with the face. He had an entry wound in the left side of the face, kind of near his nose and cheek area. It went through the upper portion of his jaw. It blew out all of the bone in his upper portion of the jaw. And then the exit wound was kind of right on the right mandible and right face. So that was the largest wound. It had taken roughly half of his lower jaw out, and there was some large pieces of bone in the soft tissues.
He got a through and through gunshot wound to the forearm, small entrance wound on the back of the arm, but then on the front of his arm here, he probably had a baseball-sized hole where the bullet had come out. He had 7 tendons that were ruptured. It went through the main artery to the hand. It blew a chunk of one of the forearm bones out.
His leg, he had a high caliber gunshot wound, and because of that, he had lost a significant amount of skin, muscle, in the area of the calf and a very large portion of his bone. He lost about 12 centimeters by 5 centimeters of just a big hole in his leg.
A level 1 trauma center has to have blood available for whatever comes through the door. Because these people, when they come through the door, can go through 4, 6, 8 units of blood in a matter of a few minutes while the trauma team is working to stabilize their circulatory system.
All hands on deck with good surgeons and good availability of people. But if you don't have the equipment and the product, meaning like specifically blood for him, it doesn't matter. You can't do anything. So it's very important.
If we don't have the blood, in someone like gunshot wound victims, certainly, there's a couple things that they die from. The most likely thing is from bleeding out. If we don't have the blood to replace what they're losing, they're gonna die.
If he didn't have blood, he wouldn't have made it. I mean, he had holes literally in him, gaping holes. The hole in his leg alone could have bled him dry.
I'm a full-time emergency medicine physician. Sometimes I can use 4, 5, 6 units on just one person. So you got to realize how many people have to give just to maybe even save one life just for one day.
I think we, as a community, take for granted that in these trauma centers we're doing all this work, but we really can't do any of this work without people playing their part, donating the blood that actually helps us save patients.
Simply put, giving blood is just the right thing to do. Because if the roles are switched and you're in the hospital and you needed someone to have given blood, it's already been done. It's just the right thing to do.
Without the blood available from volunteer donations through LifeStream, we would not be able to do our job.
They were running into harm's way. They were going up the mountain to protect us. When he was able to come and be treated at Loma Linda, again, because people had donated, because people had gone out of their way to give blood products, and to be life-saving.
During his treatment and recovery, Alex required 10 units of blood supplied by LifeStream donors. In all, his wounds required nearly 24 surgeries. Through the winter, spring, and summer, Alex challenged himself with a strenuous, extensive rehab program. Slowly, surely, he gained strength.
People write us on Facebook, is there anything that we don't even know? What could I do? One thing that you could do that won't directly affect us right now, but will affect so many other people, is you can donate blood.
The very first night after the initial surgery, I had to go down to his entire family, all his colleagues from his department, and I had to tell them that Alex was probably never going to walk again or ever return to work again. And so the fact that he is running and lifting weights and working out at the gym is it's almost a miracle.
Obviously, without LifeStream, I wouldn't be here. The community has been great with everything that's happened too, and it's good that people get to see this and go, okay, maybe it'll affect them. Like, okay, I'm gonna go give blood now. They actually put a face to it. Okay, this is where it goes, and I can be a part of saving someone's life.
This young man was pretty much on his deathbed, and he's back to work full duty and is willing to go out and put his life on the line again for the community.
And it's amazing when you can save a hero.
LifeStream. Give hope. Give life. Give blood.